Yes, well, I didn't know that he was going. Perhaps nobody knew. Perhaps it was a last-minute decision. But I, of course, as you won't be surprised to hear, commend very much anything like that he does because that's what he's good at and that's what he's trained at. Of course, the other sort of strange part of it is that he goes on about security a lot, and going into Ukraine is presumably extremely dangerous. But good for him for going anyway. I'm sure they were very glad to see him. Yes, you see, I think it's what's very sad is that he was trained for exactly those things. He was trained to do work for charities. He was trained to do work with the military. He was very happy when he was serving in the army, even if from time to time his status got in the way. Like he was called back from Iraq because he was a likely to be a liability, because in case he got kidnapped or something. That's always been the problem with the royal family when they try to serve in the armed forces. But he was very happy. He found his identity there. He's now got a fake identity out in California. I mean, he must be very uncomfortable. He certainly looks uncomfortable. He's not going to be in any particular danger in this country. In fact, when we saw him in sort of quite safe-looking vehicles, and he was swept in when he went to Clarence House, certainly, and to the other engagements. I mean, he doesn't get police outriders, fine, but I mean, why should he? And so going into a war zone, well, he knows what he's doing when he's doing those things, and he knows it's more important to go there than to worry about his personal security. But I take the point, there is a hypocritical element there. I don't think he's come out of this visit badly at all. No, I think the odd news clip that I saw, the people greeting him very warmly, and he behaved himself, and he hasn't come out with any statements that he shouldn't have done. He certainly hasn't told us what was discussed at Clarence House, and I hope he won't. I think that should be private between him and his father. So again, we have to rather watch this spot to see what happens next. But yes, I would say it was a positive visit, and I think quite a lot of people have taken the view that, as I do to some, I mean, I think that what I was going to say is reconciliation on a personal level is a very good thing. It won't actually happen on an official public level. It can't really because he would be a liability. He would attract all the publicity to himself and deflect from the king. But if there can be any reconciliation between him and his father, then that has to be a good thing. I mean, I'm thinking very much for the sake of his father, frankly, who has been very good at saying nothing, considering all the awful things that have been thrown at him by his son. And hopefully he's, taken the view well, let a little time pass, and his a father loves his son, so why shouldn't they meet? And let's hope they had a nice tea together. Well, I think it's significant that he does it on his own. I don't think that there's any wish by Meghan Markle to come back to this country in any form at all. And I don't think there's much wish from this country to have her back because of all the things that she's said and done. So he's bound to be doing things on his own. Yes, I commend him doing what he was trained to do rather than moping around in the garden and sort of while his wife, as I said before, sort of chops up, dissects petals and scatters them over salads, and he looks on to give it some sort of credibility. Because the sad thing is that, all her endeavours are monitored and watched widely on account of the fact that she's Prince Harry's wife. Otherwise, they wouldn't bother. Simple as that. So it's a tricky one because he was trained and was very, very good at his royal duties. And you see that from the clips of him with the charities in England and out in Ukraine, how people respond to him. He's got something to offer. So it's a pity that that isn't harnessed. But I can't quite see how it's going to work because, for example, if he came back to this country and took on royal duties again, let's say he came back even on his own to do that, it would, of course, detract from what the other members of the royal family were doing because people would always be wondering what he was up to and, whether he was enjoying it or whether he was doing something good or whether he is saying something that can be misinterpreted or indeed interpreted correctly. That would be the problem. So, the recent visit, the best thing I think that came out of it was that it was very good that he had a meeting with his father on humanitarian grounds because, he carries with him an enormous burden of sort of grief about his mother Don't think he's particularly happy in California. Supposing he lost his father and they were still on bad terms, that's more emotional baggage to carry around. So hopefully a little step has been taken to assuage that and make that not happen. I hope. Obviously, him going to Ukraine attracts publicity and interest. I mean, it's notable that there are cameras there recording what he does, and we've seen him out there. Well, fair enough. I mean, there would be cameras if other members of the royal family went to Ukraine on official business. I mean, it comes back to this difficult thing: is that, of course, our royal family are, working within Foreign Office guidance and all that sort of thing, and they do as they're told for the United Kingdom, whereas he is a sort of a lone figure. But the fact is that, he had gone into private life and that's where he should have stayed. So, there is a strong argument to say, look, Prince Harry, you're either in or you're out. The Queen said, you can't do half and half. Have we seen him doing half and half this week? Maybe we have. That's not good. No one would want him not to support a charity or to support wounded soldiers or to do anything that he can for the general good. But it has to be said that, of course, when he's been over here for several days in the United Kingdom, and of course, everybody's always saying, well, this engagement clashes with a William and Catherine engagement. They're very similar, all that sort of thing. Is he trying to come back? What's he trying to do? What's he really up to? And that is a pity because he does attract a lot of personal attention, whereas, our royal family, our working royals, are very good at doing things on behalf of the king and just quietly getting on with the job in hand. And people like Princess Anne would be the first to tell you that she couldn't care less whether the press was there or not following it. She was doing it because it has to be done. I've often thought that, of course, when he first went over to Canada and then to California, there were still distinct memories of him as a member of the royal family, wearing a fine uniform, in a carriage, on the palace balcony. And that, of course, is what he was marketing. And of course, the further he goes away from all that, the more he just becomes another guy stepping off a plane with a woolly hat on, sometimes a backpack, a pair of jeans, etc. So this is a worrying feature that he comes back here. Is he coming back here to reinforce our memories of him and his connection to the British royal family, which can subsequently be monetized? Now, I don't know the answer to that question, but people will definitely suggest that that's the case. So there is this balance between the good that he can do to help people with charities and with military engagements and so forth, as opposed to how it's used later. And I guess we have to just say, watch this spot. The most extraordinary and sad thing about him is that when he helped create the Invictus Games, the message of that was to wounded soldiers, you're good. You can do anything. Get on with life. Don't be a victim. And guess what he's turned himself into? Complete victim. He was, for ages he's been whining and whinging about, how everything went wrong in his life, and his book Spare is full of complaints. Admittedly, he hasn't done that very much recently, so maybe he's learnt his lesson. But it is an extraordinary thing that he, who is so good at giving that message about not being a victim, has to some extent turned himself into the biggest victim of all time.